Hello, friends. I got some. Wow, is there an echo in here? I have a some announcements about the next three books I am writing. I'm very excited about this. So let's just get on with it. Well, first of all, the little I don't really have an open, but I like to say my name is Cody Siangel. I'm the author that you know, and thank you for joining me. I'm here at my father's house in sunny Florida, very sunny Florida. Um, Although we did get a lot of rain because we had what was it, uh, Hurricane or Tropical Storm Debbie, and apparently that was pretty extreme up in I think up in the Tampa area. It looked like it went right over our heads. So, but anyway, I won't keep you in suspense any longer. So, I actually have probably the next 10 books pretty much decided. And because the story that I'm writing, the overall story, the Carliod, the Long Century series, and not to confuse it, the Long Century series is the name of the series that I sell the books under on Amazon. The Carliod is my main character, Carl, and the Carliod to me are the stories that have to deal with him. But there will be 11 as far as I am concerned with the series, and then but I'll still keep writing, and everything's in universe. But I might go into different time periods and do different things. Okay, so the very first thing, let me see if how smoothly I can do this. The very first thing that we're going to talk about is the next coming book, and that is, let's see if I can do this. Excellent. All right. That is this book here, The French Fiasco. I have not decided on the cover yet, but this is the one that I like the most. And I hope you're not disappointed if you voted for the other one. I was fine with the other one, and that was going to be the cover until I created this one. I was like, wow, I really do like the up close feel of that. So we'll see. We'll see how which one. But so that isn't really the update. The update on this one is more like we're doing this in the order they come out. So what I have to say about this one is I am, as of today, about 64,000 words, a little over 64,000 words. To put that in perspective, the Rampage on the River, the Battle for Island Number 10, is 56,000 words. The Perils of Perryville, which is book 2, is 69,000 words. And please excuse me, my allergies are so bad that my tongue swells up, and it's hard for me to speak without cutting it to pieces with my teeth. So I'm fighting this like oversized tongue that barely fits into my mouth. I need to take something for my allergies when I get done with this. And then Blood for Blood at Nashville is 119,000 words. And then Mexico, My Love was 124,000 words. And then I was like, well, man, I need to start. I don't want them to be that long. I mean, at first there's a little bit of like a measuring contest where you want like how big of a book can I write? But I feel like creatively and business wise, it's better to write 80,000. 80,000 is my goal. So I'm at 64 right now. I am beginning part 4 of the book. It's in 5 parts, and I will definitely hit 80,000 and probably will go over. I'm hoping not to go anywhere. If I get between 70 and 90, that's fine. If I get into the 90s, I'd like to keep it under 100,000. If it gets over 100,000, so be it. I have to finish the story. Part of me was like, I could squeeze another book out of the Franco-Prussian, the whole Prussian saga, which is the book before the Prussian Prince, which is the Austro-Prussian War, and then this one, the Franco-Prussian War, and I could almost do another one on the Commune, and I don't think I will. I'll show you a little bit of it. Let's see. We'll stop sharing here, and we'll. No, how do I do this? I'm gonna hide that because that's just causing me problems. Stop sharing. Okay. Present. We'll share screen. All right. Okay, we'll share this. So this is the master document. Let me just make sure I'm still close this here. All right. So here's the master document. Let's see if I can get back to it now. And the way I write actually is I create a master document. Like here's the title page, copyright, and then here are the contents. And this is just like the whole book will be on this. But what I do is I write each chapter as a separate document. And once that chapter is done, and I do some preliminary editing, then I add it to the master document. And the reason why I do that is the master document gets so big that it's hard to scroll, and you can screw things up really easily. So I like to write each chapter as its own document and then add it. So, real quick, we can kind of go through. I don't know if I'm going to leave these parts in there, but it's a way for me to divide. So chapter 1 is called Death of an Empire. And then part 1 is the affair. Part 2 is atrocities. That's where the war breaks out. Part 3 is Metz. Part 4 is the Battle of Sedan. I am writing chapter 21 right now. Part 5 may or may not be the Siege of Paris. There's definitely a story that is going to conclude the book in part 5, but I'm not quite sure if I want to put that in Paris. So that's basically it. Let's see, we're in the middle of August or closer to the beginning of it. If I stay on this what do you call it? This rate, this pace that I'm on right now. If I'm able to, I opened the wrong thing. Okay. If I'm able to stay, let me stop sharing that too. Stop sharing the screen. If I'm able to stay on the pace that I've been able to keep, it looks like I could be done with the rough draft in October. I'd like to do that because I want to give myself 3 months of pre-orders, and I'm not going to run ads on Amazon for the French Fiasco until I start obviously, because there's nothing to click on. But once I start the pre-orders, I'm going to start the ads. And Brian Cohen's free 5-day challenge is in October, so it'd be nice to be able to build those ads and start getting some pre-orders. And then I've decided to do 60 days or 90 days. I decided to do a longer, I have to look it up. I decided to do a longer pre-orders. I think maybe 60 days, because I think before, like when I first did it, I did like 2 weeks, and then I tried a month. But I have Amazon followers that follow my author page on Amazon, and I have 165 of them now. If you're one of them, thank you very much. I am. What happens with those followers? I have no contact with them. I can't see their names. I can't contact them. Whatever. I just have to trust that Amazon's going to do it for me. But what Amazon will do is, if you follow an author on Amazon, they'll send out emails to your followers like, "Hey, Cody Engle's got a new book on pre-order," or "Cody Engle's got a new book out." I don't think Amazon ever put an email out about the Prussian Prince, because I never saw one. And the 2 people who would let me know if they got one, Lloyd Elmore Jr., who's also a writer, an author who's on Amazon, and Laura, my girlfriend, we never saw one. Not for the pre-orders and not for the release. And I don't know what's going on. It might have been a fluke. It might have been because it's Prussia. The Prussians, some of the military iconography that we associate with the bad guys of World War II uh, weren't invented by the bad guys of World War II. They were invented well before that, even during the Napoleonic Wars. Like the Iron Cross, for example, was, I think, invented in like 1806. And by the way, the Iron Cross is still awarded for bravery in the current German army. And the eagle, the Prussian eagle, so they might have suppressed it because of that. And I don't think it's a human. I think it's the algorithm. So there's that. Anyway, what I'm trying to say though is, if I can get the rough draft, I don't do pre-orders until I know the story's done, because I don't want to be under pressure writing. So I'm hoping to get done in early October. If I don't, no big deal. But if I get it done, then I can start the pre-orders, and I'll take Brian Cohen's course and build the new ads for that. So that's what I'm hoping to do. So that's where we are. Like I said, if I stay on pace with my writing, right now I am in the arc of the Battle of Sedan. If you're not familiar with the Franco-Prussian War, it's the big one. Although I think a lot of experts will say that the war was truly decided at Gravelotte, but the Battle of Sedan is pretty much it, because after that it's the siege of Paris, and there's plenty of combat and things happening, but Sedan really puts a cap on it. So that's that. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is my email list. And by the way, please, by all means, join my email list. If you go down below in the notes, you'll see there's a link there. I won't spam you. I'm just going to let you know if I got a book that's on special, or if I'm going to be speaking somewhere, or if I have a new book coming out. I might every once in a while write a little blog post and say, hey, do you guys, I put one out and said, do you like this cover or that cover? But I'm not going to send you stupid newsletters like, oh, it's midsummer and it always reminds me of my mom making tabbouleh when I was a kid. No, none of that. I'm not going to, all my emails are going to be actionable. So it means, like if you get one, it might mean like, hey, this book is going to be 99 cents or 99 pence in the UK, or hey, this, the pre-orders are out for this one, or maybe, and some announcements. But I read Brian Cohen's book on email marketing, and I finally got to realize that I have to have an email list. And right now I'm up to 64 followers. So if you're on that list, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll have thousands someday. And the thing is that, like, you can't trust Amazon. Like, I don't think Amazon ever emailed my followers on Amazon and have no control over it. And I pay good money to advertise on Amazon and Meta, but I don't own those platforms. And Meta, I'm one bad post from being kicked off. Not that I'm in any trouble or causing trouble, but you don't own that it's rented ground. You own your own email list. And the people that are on your list are people who are actively following you because they like you as an author. Unlike like my Facebook, where I have friends, family, people who know me for other reasons than that I'm an author. So it's really one of the best marketing tools you can have as an author, especially as an independent. But what Brian, and I've heard other people talk about this too, what Brian suggests is that to get people to sign up, give them an incentive, and what they call a lead loss, something that you give away for free. And in return, you're hoping to have them on your list so that you can, and hopefully they'll be interested in buying more of your stuff. So he suggests that you write like a short story or a novella, something that has to do with the series, like a character or whatever. It has to be interesting and integral and part of that world, but not necessary to read because it's going to be exclusive to the people who sign up to your list. So that's a doozy. And so I thought, well, what would that be for me? And first of all, my first goal was just to get the list started. It was really hard. I had to It was confusing, even with the book, because the book doesn't really talk about the technical stuff. I had to get a domain. I had to pay for a domain name, which is Angdal House, and then I had to pay for an email server, and then I had to get an account with a MailerLite to handle the. It's complicated, and trust me, if you're an author, you need to do it, and it's not going to be easy when you do it. And the whole thing about writing a short story or a novella, I was like, man, I ain't got time for that right now. But if you read Brian Cohen's book, and I think it's quite simply like email marketing for authors or something like that. Brian Cohen is very straightforward with his title, so you know exactly what you're getting. In it, he creates a fictional character in which he's coaching, and then he uses that conversation to kind of bookend each of the chapters, and then the interior part of the chapter is a straight advice. And the character that he's giving the advice to is like, well, I don't have time to do that. I got to write this, and he's like, if it's important, you make the time. You just have to make the time. And so anyway, I didn't want to make the time because I have 10 more books to write. I got more than that. I got more. It's just the next 10 I'm probably most likely going to write. And then the ones after that are things I'm considering after I get done with everything I'm doing. And so I was like, what am I going to do? So if you haven't read Rampage on the River, it's in like October of 1861 in Detroit. And there was a ball the night before, and then the friends are saying goodbye to each other because one of them's going to Tennessee to fight for the Confederacy, and the other two are from the North, and so they're going to stay home. But then they end up getting in the war too. And there's what happened before the narrative starts is that one of the characters kisses a girl at that ball. It's not in the it's not depicted in the story, it's referred to in the story, and that causes her brother to demand a duel. And so chapter 1 of Rampage on the River, Carl gets into a duel because the night before he kissed a guy's sister, and that is going to set off an animosity that is going to last throughout most of the books and create a character, Klaus. It's kind of like an enemy, sometimes a frenemy. Klaus is a complicated character, and I have a lot. He's in the book I'm writing now, and I have a lot in store for Klaus. So I like him a lot. So I thought, well, maybe I could write a short story about. I don't know what just happened. Sorry about that. We just had a little black screen go there. But I didn't think that what they say is that novella should be along the same lines of the rest of your book. So like if you write war and action and adventure, you shouldn't write a romance. You should stay on brand. It should be action and adventure. So there's not enough there. And then it dawned on me that in Rampage on the River, there's a character named Chester E. Newman, and he is building a company, the part of the 2nd Michigan Regiment. And he, slight spoiler, this is in chapter 1 of book 1, but Chester E. Newman comes upon that duel between Carl and Klaus and ends up arresting Carl, and Carl is faced with the choice of he can go to jail or he can join the army. And guess what? It's Chester E. Newman's Company H of 2nd Michigan. And Chester E. Newman is one of my favorite characters. The name, my tongue is swollen so much I keep biting it. The name is actually pulled from the roster of the 2nd Michigan Cavalry, but the character is my own invention. So I took a real name, but created a character around him. So Chester is a sheriff's deputy at the beginning of the book. He later becomes a captain in the 2nd Michigan, and he's in all 3 of the first 3 novels of this American Civil War. And then it dawned on me what, because they said your novella or your short story could be about a character that's part of your series. It doesn't have to be the main character, and it can give some background, some backstory. And so I thought, okay, if you go to Detroit today, you will see there's a statue on the river, because the other side of the Detroit River is Windsor, Canada. And Detroit was one of the last stops of the Underground Railroad. And so a lot of escaped slaves would come to Detroit, and then and there was a whole chapter of the Underground Railroad that would help these people get across the river to safety in Canada. And at that time, it was British Canada. So it was basically Britain who had outlawed slavery. So if you got to Canada, you were golden. And there was a story, I don't know if I'm going to incorporate this, but there's a great story in which there was and then there was the Fugitive Slave Act. And the Fugitive Slave Act was a federal law passed by Congress that said that if there are fugitive slaves in a northern state and southern slave catchers come to arrest that slave, northern law enforcement has to assist them. And so, which was pretty shitty, because it was tying their hands and forcing them to be complicit in slavery. And so there's a real story. I don't know if I'm going to use this story or not, but I might do something similar to it. There's a real story that there was a woman, a runaway slave, and she had been arrested, and she was sitting in the Detroit jail waiting for the southern slave catchers to show up and to take her back to her plantation. And this chapter of this is great. These people, white people in Detroit who were against slavery, who were helping the Underground Railroad, went to visit her. That was their right. They'd go visit her. It was a woman. And I think it was maybe at least one woman. And they said, we brought her food and whatever. And then when they're done, they left, and the woman that came was wearing like a robe or a hood or whatever, and so they left. And so the next day, the slave catchers show up, and they're like, "Here he is," and they open up the door, and it's a white woman. They swapped, and the black woman was escorted to the river and taken across the Windsor to freedom. It's a great story. It's a real story. It happened in Detroit. I don't know if I'm going to do that story, but my idea is now that I'm going to do a story, a novella. It's going to be exclusive. So only people on my mailing list are going to get, I think that's how it's going to work. At least the digital copy. They're going to get it for free. If you've already signed up for my mailing list, you will get this book for free as an ebook. I might have print copies available on Amazon. I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. But otherwise, you have to be on my mailing list to get it. So it's the book is going to be called, because it's going to be the night before Rampage on the River starts. And so Carl and Klaus and Anna and Francis and Kyle will all make appearances in it, but it's going to be Chester E. Newman's story, in which he is a sheriff's deputy and he is charged with helping slave catchers capture and return a slave. But he is going to and he wants to go along with this because he is trying to get his commission as a captain. So he can't break the law. He can't get himself in trouble. So I think what the story is going to be is that Chester is helping the slave catchers, but in the end, he's actually going to help the escaped slave get across the river. And that morning, once he gets that person or people onto a boat and across the river, he's walking away, and that's where he comes upon Carl and Klaus having their duel. And so if you've read Rampage on the River, this short story will end right at that point, and it'll be pretty cool. So what I did was I really love Chester, and I describe him in the book. I gave him a really great personality. He's funny. He's got great one-liners. He's kind of like a lovable bully. And so I went on like an AI character generator, and I did some prompts. and I came up with well, he's on the thumbnail, but I'm going to show you. This is how I. Oh, hang on. So Lloyd says, please do print copies. I like hard copy. I will. I'm pretty sure I will. Thanks, Lloyd, by the way. But everybody, Lloyd Elmore Jr. He's another author. You can find him on Amazon, like you find me. Okay, so I'm going to show you my version of Chester E. Newman. I love it. Not quite, but I still don't understand how to do the prompts to get exactly what I want. But this is pretty good. All right, here we go. So, all right, yeah, there we go, Chester. I feel like that's pretty close to the way I pictured him and described him in my book. So, Chester E. Newman is a sheriff's deputy tasked with helping Southern slave catchers return their slaves, but he's going to pull a fast one, and that short story will be exclusive. A short story or novella. I mean, I'll probably around, at the shortest 5,000 words, but I'm thinking more like 20,000 words. We'll see how far I get into it. But I have decided that this has to get done. That before I write the next novel, if I really want to be serious, to take the time. And I give myself up to 2 years between novels, but I'm going to treat this as a novel into itself, even though it's mostly as a lead loss on my Amazon. But there will be a print copy available for sure. What was I going to say? So when I finish The French Fiasco, I will start writing this, and I won't move on to the next full book until this is done. So the timetable right now is that The French Fiasco gets rough draft finished in October, 3 months of pre-orders and editing, and it comes out first thing in January, I think, January, early next year. And then I'll start on, and the name of this novella is going to be The Underground Railroad Ball, because this ball is happening while all this intrigue and adventure is going on. And all the stories are going to intertwine with each other. That's work. And I'm committed to this. I'm going to do this first. It's an investment of time. For something I'm going to mostly give away for free, but I think it's the right way to go. I'm listening to the experts. Many of them are saying this is what you need to do if you want to grow, and that's what I want to do. This is going to take, I'm going to give myself, however long it takes. I'm estimating probably about 6 months to write it, edit it, and publish it. Maybe it'll be sooner. I don't know. Then after that, we're going to do, here we go. And this book has been planned since I wrote the original trilogy. Most of everything I'm doing has been in the works for a very long time. So we're going to stop that. And then the next full novel is going to be, here is another, let's see here. Here's another AI dream up here. Not quite. I wanted to, like I said, I could give some kind of prompts, but this isn't exactly how I see Black James, but it's a pretty good. It's close enough. The first one, the guy was too slender. James is enormous. He's a big, powerful man. So if you have read my books, James is mentioned. I think the first time he's mentioned is maybe in The Perils of Perryville. He is the father of two of the characters, Elijah and Liza. And they kind of find out about him as the books go. They kind of learn the truth about their birth. And then, and I had always planned this. Once I think probably from The Perils of Perryville is when I first had this idea. Then I introduced him in the book Mexico, My Love. And if you haven't read it, he makes a pretty dramatic entrance right in the middle of the book. And I was hoping that people would have like, oh my God. Yeah, I don't say who it, but if you've read the trilogy and you read that, you'll probably figure out who he is. And then, like I said, like I always had planned on, I was going to write a character book about him, and it's going to be an kind of a point of departure for me, and I'm kind of wondering how I'm going to present it, uh, and how I'm going to organize my series. This will be technically book 7 of the series, but it's going to be a kind of standalone, outside the main sequence. It's going to be an epic novel, and it's going to be character driven. And most of my novels have been, or all my novels have been, plot driven. This one is character driven. And if you've ever read Carlos Blake, James Carlos Blake, Country of the Bad Wolves. Actually, it's Country of the Bad Wolves, which is one of the best books I have ever read in my entire life. It's epic and it's generational. And I kind of want to do, in fact, I'm going to reread that book to do before I do this, because I want to kind of capture that feel. This book is going to start in Africa with warring tribes. It's James's father is going to be captured and sold into slavery, and grow, and then escape in Virginia and fight in the War of 1812 on behalf of the British. The British had a policy. If they said, look, any enslaved person, if you escape and you come to our and join our military, we will guarantee your freedom for life. And so a lot of men took that deal. And this is very interesting. During the War of 1812, the British sacked Washington and burned down the White House. And several of the men that were involved in that were Royal Marines. And many of the Royal Marines were escaped slaves who were now wearing red coats and burning down the White House. I think it's kind of metal, man. I think it's kind of badass. That's James's father. And this is also true that after the War of 1812, the British had all these, ex-slaves that they had promised freedom. And so they said, we'll give you a choice, because they couldn't let them go back to America. They'd be probably, hanged for slave insurrection. So they could go to Canada or Jamaica. Jamaica was owned by Britain at the time. In fact, Jamaica is still part of the British Commonwealth. So the story is going to be that James's father takes the option to go to Jamaica. That is where James is born. He grows up. His father runs a dock and that handles shipping and receipt. He's into trade and becomes quite successful. James grows up on the docks, helping his dad, learning about sailing. He's fascinated with pirates. He's got like a boy's sense of like adventure and excitement. Loves playing pirate, all this kind of stuff. He is en route to, he's going to inherit his dad's business. He's learning how to sail. He wants to be a pirate. He's learning how to sword fight, and he plays pirate with his friends. He's going to be betrayed by a friend and end up in chains and sold, sold into slavery. Ends up at the Bethune plantation because he's the father of Elijah and Liza. Falls in love with a girl. Eventually escapes, becomes pirate. And we're going to bring him all the way to his appearance in the Mexico, My Love. And that scene that he's in, we're going to do that scene again, but it's going to be his perspective and the bigger story that he's part of. And that is going to be probably where I finish the book. The reason why there's an announcement is because I knew I wanted to do the book, but I wasn't quite, and I knew some of the things I wanted to have in it, but I wasn't quite sure where I was going to end the book. And so the other day I got really inspired. It all came to me. And so I sat down and I plotted out and outlined the whole book. So I know what's going to happen. And the interesting thing about this is that right now I'm in 1870 as far as how far I am in the future. My books right now, the earliest date is like 1838, I think is the furthest back I go. And then I'm all the way up to like 1870 in the narrative I'm writing now. And so James will go back even further. And this book is going to end in 1848 is where Black James will end. But it'll be an open ending because I may bring James back in future novels. Maybe even the next one, book 8, which is going to be kind of a North African, I believe, adventure. I know what the book is going to be about, but it's still a little foggy about exactly where I'm going to put it and everything I want to put it. I have a lot of ideas, but Brian Cohen said sometimes that you don't really make your big success on your first series. You might do it in your second or third, but I don't want to abandon the series I'm writing. But Black James may be considered book 7 in my series, or it might just be an auxiliary book where it's not numbered. It's part of the Long Century series, but it doesn't have a number. I find that that's kind of dangerous because when I made Mexico My Love a prequel, it wasn't showing up with the other books. And so people weren't reading it because they didn't see it as the next book. When I changed that book to be book 4, all of a sudden it was selling. And so I don't know. The other option is that James will be a series starter, and I will do a whole other series that is about Black James and his adventures. So those are the 3 options. Option 1 is I make it book 7. Option 2 is I make it an auxiliary standalone book that's in the Long Century series. And book 3 or option 3 is that James becomes a series itself. Do I want to write a series? I'll tell you this. If Black James gets really popular and there's a demand, maybe I'll do that. But the plan is that once I write James, then I'll get back on track with the sequence. And right now, the sequence is going to be after James, we're going to get back to Carl, and we're going to stay with him to the bitter end. So we're going to do a book. It doesn't have, Empire of Cotton is one of the ideas because a lot of the cotton trade moved to Egypt. So I'm thinking most likely there's an Egyptian adventure. I already know what the premise of it's going to be and who's going to be in it. After that, I have another idea that is going to be a Western. And I already have that book. Is kind of already set up in the trilogy. Just remember, there are some characters that were big in the trilogy that we said goodbye to in book 3, but we're not done with them. And so that's going to bring them back. That book is going to introduce a new character, and that character is going to bring Carl to Japan for a Japanese adventure as well. And then I have a World War or the beginning World War I adventure, and that's going to be the end of the Carleon. So the Carleon is basically going to be, or the Long Century series is the first 3 Civil War trilogy, Mexico My Love, which is a prequel, the Prussian saga, the 2-book Prussian saga, which is the Prussian Prince and the French Fiasco, then the Black James book, then the Egyptian adventure, the Western, the Japanese one, World War One, and then we're done. And then I have several ideas. One is either World War II book or getting into World War II. And I already have the premise and the idea of the story, and that one's kind of figure out how that's going to go. I don't know if I'm going to do that right away. I probably will. Uh, I have an American Revolutionary book I'd like to do. I have a Haitian um, Revolution book that I'm really excited about. And I've been, all of these books I have planned have folders on my computer and have documents that have notes and plot ideas, and some of them have outlines. Then after I do the Haitian Revolution, there's a couple ideas that I have. One is a French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, but from a different angle than most. I'll just say this: most of the books about that are written by British authors, so it's always the Brits are the good guys. I have a different idea that I want to do, and that could be a series. That's one of the series that I'm considering is a French Revolution into the Napoleonic War series. I'll just say this: with the main character would be a Frenchman. I have another idea that I want to do this is really interesting. So I've had this idea for a very long time. I love the early modern age. So there are three parts of the modern age or modern era. The modern age, by most people's summation, starts about at 1450. 1450 is the fall of Constantinople and the fall of the Byzantine Empire. It's the beginning of the Renaissance, and I can't remember exactly, but there's the early modern period or age. It's 1400 up to the end of the 18th century. All right. Like the French Revolution. The late modern era is French Revolution to World War One, and then the contemporary era is like World War II on. I would put it this way: I would say that they talk about the long century being the French Revolution to the beginning of World War One. I say the long 19th century is actually the French Revolution to the end of World War II. And the reason why I say that is because World War I really is the culmination of everything that had happened from the French Revolution. And World War II is just an extension of that. And also, the reason why I put it together as an era is because, and this is what I like to write about, I don't write about so much I don't glorify the violence, or that I glorify like that kind of honor code and honor amongst enemies, and that kind of swashbuckling feel that people had, that sense of honor people carried with them during. Another name for the era is called the Victorian era. Those ideals, and even after Victoria died, even in World War II, there was still a little that sense of honor amongst enemies and things that it was dying. It was definitely dying, and war was getting uglier and uglier and uglier. But World War II is, I think the dropping of the atomic bomb, which I'm not against, but the dropping of the atomic bomb was the end of the age of romance, and to me, the contemporary modern age in which we live in now starts with the end of World War II and has continued on to present day. Yeah, you can cut that up into decades, and the digital age and this age and space age and all that, but we are living in the same time period as that, which started with the end of World War II. Basically, where I'm a Gen Xer. My dad was born in 44. He's 1 year off of the baby boom. My mom was born in 47. So when I was a little kid, World War II stuff didn't seem like World War II didn't seem like a period piece. World War II in the 70s still felt kind of modern to us. If you think about it, when I was a kid in the 70s, World War II to me would be as old as the Gulf Wars of the 90s to kids today, right? It's that same amount of period. I mean, does that kind of blow your mind? Because now it feels like World War II is like a whole other era, like people talk different, dress different. But in the 70s, it was no further away from me in the 70s than, the Gulf War of the 90s are to people today. Here's another thing really interesting. Today, World War II is as long ago and far away as the American Civil War was to the people who fought in World War II. That's kind of interesting as well. So finish this up, to recap this, my father is out at he's not dying anymore. He's not dying anymore. He's just like, I don't know. I just fed him, and he just got better and stronger. Now he's walking. He's going on errands by himself. He's making his own food. He's fine. And I might be coming home for more of a permanent basis. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But he's at book club, which is basically the men, while the women go to the book club, all the husbands go and drink. And they do it every Thursday night, so like an hour. So that's why I've been doing this Thursday nights, because I have a little privacy and I don't have to take care of my dad. Lately, I haven't had to take care of him. He takes care of himself. He's been doing all the cooking lately. So we're going to wrap up. So here is the deal. I'll take James down here. And I hope you guys are as excited as I am. Let's see. We'll stop the screen. All right. So what's coming from Engdahl House? We are 64,000 words into the French Fiasco. I hope to start pre-orders in October and have the book out in the beginning of January. Even if it's done early, I think the earliest I will do it is the day after Christmas, because it is really hard to sell a new book during Christmas. It's just no one's reading, no one's buying things for themselves, and very few people are buying presents buying presents. Oh, I got some things by Lloyd here. Lloyd says, I'm looking forward to the Western, and I'd love to read a World War story from you. Yeah, both of them are going to be great concepts. I think you'll really, really like it. I'll give you a little hint. My Western is going to be a little bit of a Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now inspired kind of story. It's going to bring back a lot of people that you knew. We're gonna Mexico is going to be a big part of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be some old flames. There's going to be some new characters. I can't wait. And then Lloyd also says, oh yeah, people in the 70s were the age you are now. Yes, no, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. And so like the World War II vets, like now we're like, oh my God, they're so precious. They're all like in their 90s. They're like 50 years old back then. I remember my great uncle. He fought in World War II. He was actually at Auschwitz. He's not Jewish. It's because Auschwitz was a huge compound. So there was a part that was a concentration camp for Jews and Gypsies and Soviets and homosexuals and all the people that they were putting that through. But they kept POWs in another place. So my great uncle, so my grandfather's brother, Maynard, was in the POW camp at Auschwitz and was treated, pretty well. I skipped one. Lloyd also said, okay, looking for the Western, and I'd love to read the World War II story from you. I have a great idea. I am a big fan of a YouTuber who is, I'll just tell, very people, I don't like to talk politics because I don't want to turn anybody off. I'm a moderate. I'm probably just slightly left of center. I don't make a big deal about it. I don't dislike people who vote Republican. I'm not like that. I don't like the extreme end of either side. I don't like the extreme left. I don't like the extreme right. I'm kind of in the center. If we can be cool, let's be cool. I'm a fan of a YouTuber who's very political, but most of the stuff he talks about are like comic books and geek stuff. Every once in a while, he gets into the political stuff, and I usually just turn it off. I'm like, okay, I'm not listening to that. But my idea is about a couple, because Laura is worried that I'm being radicalized because I watch some conservative commentary, but it's in the reference of like geek culture and comic books and things like that. It's Ethan Van Sciver, if anybody wants to know. He's mostly because he's a shark jock and he's funny to listen to. And I had this idea about a couple who are in love with each other. In the beginning of the book, they both start off as just kind of moderate liberals, for that era. And he starts becoming obsessed with a radio program and the character is going to be the radio host that he listens to is going to be based off of Ethan Van Sciver. And it starts pulling them apart. And he does start getting radicalized and starts turning more and more, where she, on the other hand, goes the other direction, and it pulls them apart. And I got a great idea of how, like a true historical incident that's going to that happens, that I'm going to put them in it, and I won't tell you how it ends, but it's about a couple that start together, and then as we inch towards, as the Nazis rise in, I wasn't supposed to say that on YouTube, as the bad guys of World War II start gaining power in Germany, they start doing this until they might end up being on opposite sides of things. So, okay. Lloyd says, put me as a character in your Western and I'll put you in one of my books. Well, you already owe me one, Lloyd, because you're Colonel Deering in Blood for Blood. I mean, you're not exactly him, but I took qualities of you and I put them in him. And none of my characters are me, but yet somehow all of them have a little bit of me in them, including the historical ones. But I take things from people I know. For example, my version of King Willem I, who is in The Prussian Prince, and he's also makes some appearances in The French Fiasco, is very much etched after my father. And that's not coming from nowhere. It's the things that I have read about Willem I and his demeanor and his way reminds me a lot of my father. So I'm able to use my father as a kind of a model of how Willem I acts in his way, his personality. I gave Colonel Deering some of Lloyd Elmore Jr.'s personality in Mexico, My Love. No, I'm sorry, in Blood for Blood at Nashville. The whole lovers triangle story that happens in Mexico, My Love is kind of a rehashing of a real story that happened with me when I was living in Budapest, Hungary. And Pierre Godfrey is basically based off of a man that I knew named Peter Gottfried. Peter was German. He was a Hungarian because he spoke Hungarian, but he was German descent. And Pierre is based off of Peter. And Peter and I were friends until I fucked that up. And so that story in Mexico, My Love, between Diego and Pierre is inspired by the story that I lived out between me and Peter in Budapest. So that will be, so that's kind of interesting. And Levy is actually Levy. And so if you read Mexico, My Love, Levy and Attila and Thomas are all named after Levy, Attila, and Thomas that I knew, and those were Peter's friends. So when you read Mexico, My Love, those guys, Pierre, Thomas, Attila, Levy, are named after, and I actually use those personalities in them So that's them, basically. I don't know if they'll ever know. Uh, because the woman I ended up stealing away from Peter ended up being my first ex-wife. Go figure. Now, Claudette is not in any way uh, modeled after her at all. Not at all. But the situation that I got into is it was the inspiration for that story. Of course, it wasn't like Smugglers. It wasn't as adventurous and violent and romantic as I made this, but that's where I got the idea from. I did Peter wrong, and I paid for it dearly. Actually, I did Peter a favor if we I took the bullet for Peter. He owes me. So that's it. So my recap is this. Probably pre-orders in October. Book will come out in January. I will start writing the novella. Please sign up for my email list. Lloyd, I know you're already on there. If you, it's gonna, once I write it, I will start advertising on Facebook and other places. Join my email list. You'll get this free ebook. We'll make the print copies available on Amazon. That's probably what I'll do. And let's see. And then after that, I'll start Black James. I'll give myself up to 2 years. Black James, that's my goal, is no more than 2 years between books. Probably no faster than every 6 months, with the exception of the novella, because that is a lead loss. It's part of marketing. It's exclusive to the list. I don't know how long James is going to be. I'm going to give myself up to 2 years. It's going to be very different. It's a whole different cast, whole different new story. The story's plotted out. There's going to be a lot of research I have to do because I'm kind of changing subgenres. I'll be writing like a nautical pirate book, and I haven't read a lot of them. I'm planning to. I got some lined up that I'm going to read, because it's really important to read the books and the genres that you're writing. I haven't written a character-driven book, and I haven't read a pirate book. So this will be a new experience for me. So I can't tell you when that will come out. And then we're going to do the Egyptian, the last 4 books of the Carleon, and then we'll see what happens then. All right, everybody, I love you. I will I hope to be on next week. It's going to be a little crazy because I think I might be making a quick run to Nashville. Might be permanent. It might just be a visit. We'll see what happens with my dad. But in the meantime, if you have an author out there like Lloyd Elmore Jr., or any of my other friends, and you like what they're doing, by all means, first of all, thank you for reading, right? But if you can, go on Amazon, go on Goodreads, go on Waterstones, give them a 5-star review. If anything, just give them the stars, give them 5 stars. But if you can write a couple lines like, hey, this was great, really, this is great, couldn't put it down, that's it. It helps out a lot, and we really appreciate it. So I love you guys, and I will talk to you soon. We'll be back next week. I have an idea what I want to talk about. We'll see where I squeeze it in, because things might be in flux, but it might be at the same time. Who knows? This channel is an always evolving thing.